I'm Davey.
I'm Mamba.
And this is Off the Record.
Welcome back, one and all, to another edition of Boozy Off the Record. Mamba may have just poured himself a red Solo cup's worth of wine. We'll see how that progresses throughout the show. But as always, it's your boys, Davey and Mamba, hanging out with Dillon Welch, who's probably the most frequent guest on the program, and ripping off his rookie stripe after the show will be Joey Barnes, who's probably smarter than all of us combined. So I'm glad that we have you on board, Joey, to give us a little variety, because the variety is the spice of life, and you're smarter than all of us probably. So welcome.
I doubt that last half part of it, but yeah, it's good to be on the show, man.
Absolutely. All right, Mamba, what'd you think of Dover, my friend? I think that it was unfortunate that it got rained out to Monday. I was not planning on staying an extra day, but here we are now on a Wednesday, and it's a bit later in the week that we're recording because of Mother Nature. She really just likes to wreak havoc on things, doesn't she?
Yeah, sometimes she loves racing and sometimes she absolutely hates racing, which is pretty standard, I feel like, for wives, right? And mothers. Like, they don't really, sometimes they love it, sometimes they hate it. But actually, selfishly, I am a little happy that it got rained out because I was working at NHRA. So because it got rained out, that meant I got to go to HQ down here and watch the race with my colleagues in studio, which was kind of cool. So that was different. My colleagues. So that was fun. It was different. It's cool.
Dillon, I know working rainouts is never really fun. It's just you have to change your travel. Your whole week gets screwed up. Everything's off kilter. So it must have been nice that you didn't have to worry about that for a change.
Yeah, the worst part of rainouts is doing rain fill. To be honest, like the travel and stuff is a pain, but the worst part is having to do rain fill. It seemed like last year, it seemed like everywhere I went, I had to do rain fill. I don't know why. So I was selfishly glad that I was not in Dover this weekend. I was at Barber and like Mamba got to check it out on Monday from the comfort of my own home, which was enjoyable.
You guys make it look pretty easy, but I know that it's not just doing rain fill, because you're like, oh yeah, you just go talk to drivers and you talk about what's happened so far. But when there's 78 laps of not really much going on, you have to talk to a lot of drivers and you got to just vamp until you can't vamp anymore. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's the worst. The worst rain fill is when you're like, less than 100 laps in, or like last year, I think it was in New Hampshire, when they all crashed when it was apparently not raining, when it was actually raining, and everybody's all mad and pissed off, and you have to tread lightly through that situation. That's always fun too.
Yeah. Joey, I know IndyCar is obviously not immune to Mother Nature. Unfortunately, she likes to wreak havoc on that side of things as well, but it was pretty nice weather, I would say, up until a point, of course, this past weekend at Barber, but no rainouts necessarily on Sunday, which was a good thing.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking too, because I mean, Barber was a place that we've seen in the past. I don't know, I can't remember if Dillon was there for that, but a few years ago, it ended up raining us into a Monday, and there was the impound.
I wasn't there, but I remember it.
Yeah, and that was a nutty one, because they also impounded the cars but allowed refueling, so it screwed some guys on strategy, and it was a big mess. So even though IndyCar usually can get a rain race in, unless it's on an oval, it's wreaked havoc in the past. But honestly, really good show on Sunday on the IndyCar's front. Exceptional race, I thought. And on the NBC side, I thought they did a really good job of getting the strategy right with what's going on in the field. Along with that, doing a good job of showing the action behind the top five, because frankly, for the first 2/3 of the race, there really wasn't anything happening in the top five, but there were some comers and goers there throughout. So good on them. I don't always give props to TV. I'll give props in that sense, because it was a good run for them.
That is something, right? Like TV, like we do as fans, as consumers of the product. Like a lot of times we rip them relatively harshly especially on social, like the fans do, but it's not a super easy job, right? I mean, like flipping all those switches and getting the right angles, and we didn't have that exact angle to get that exact incident. I know, obviously, Dillon, you and probably David too, you guys can speak to it more. I've only done some like production stuff, but it's a hard balance, right? Like you're trying to do it all, and sometimes it feels like you don't do any of it right.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately too, it's like, and that is one thing that I appreciate about NBC. And I mean, I haven't worked for Fox, so I don't know the inner workings of how their thought processes go during the race and stuff. But I know at NBC, we are very conscious and have become way more conscious over the last couple of years of trying to tell stories besides the stories that are just up front, and there's obviously, like you said, Mamba, a lot more that goes into it just from a show flow standpoint and business, just there's a lot more than just saying, oh, well, instead of talking about these guys, we're going to talk about these guys. There's more to it than that. But we try, on the IndyCar side and the NASCAR side, and even the IMSA side too, to talk about everybody at some point throughout the weekend if we can, that is one thing that I appreciate. And especially for me, because sometimes when I get, the pit assignments, like at IndyCar this weekend, I kind of had the back of the grid, and thankfully Callum Ilott was like a stud at Barber. So I got to talk about him a lot, but a lot of times, you don't get to talk about your guys because they just aren't running as well as they, need to be on TV. So NBC does a good job, I think, of trying to get everybody, kind of in the mix and give them some love.
Television rules all in motorsports. It rules all in really any major sport, but it kind of comes to a head at a certain point. I know it kind of comes to a head at a certain point, and that point may have come on Sunday afternoon from Dover, Delaware. We're going to take a quick break, come back and chat with some of the television minds here about how that factors into the racing product on track. Stick around. You're listening to Off the Record.
Welcome back to Off the Record. Your boy Mamba is bringing us back because I got a bone to pick. Thank you, Davey, for really laying that up to me. Very nice of you. Good assist. All right, here, fellas. Here's the thing, right? So a lot of the fans, a lot of people on Twitter after the Dover race were upset because, oh, why doesn't it have lights? Oh, it's 2022. It should have lights. Oh, the start and all this stuff, right? And they want to point the finger to one space. It's usually the sanction body. And I obviously, like, I used to be like that until I understood more of the workings. The inner workings is TV really dictates what's going on. It's not just about, oh, okay, we have lights so we can run at 9. Well, what if there's a noise ordinance at, like, in Loudon? Loudon, you can't run night races. It's not because they don't want to. Hell, it used to be sponsored by it was the Sylvania 300 when I went there forever. And I was like, why are there no lights here? It always rains. Why are there no? Well, grow up a little bit. The town is like, we don't really want you here that bad. Like, we don't really want you here, and we definitely don't want you running at night. So, like, can you guys explain, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Because I feel like, obviously it's a money thing, and I understand it, and sometimes it just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that, because of the TV contracts and the money that is involved with those contracts, and ultimately that's how people see the sport, is through TV. I mean, there's obviously other outlets, but the primary outlet of viewership is TV. So, I think to keep TV happy, they obviously have done their research to see that the ratings are better leading into, the 7 o'clock hour, into the primetime hour. Now, I don't think you will find anybody who works on the TV crews at the racetrack that would not be in favor of earlier start times, because we all want to get home on Sunday night earlier and see our families, or just get home, but that's just kind of what the deal is now. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon, because I think TV is going to be even more heavily involved, in these new contracts in 2024 or 5, whenever the new contracts start. TV is going to have just as big, if not a bigger role than they do now, I think, in what our sport looks like. So, it's annoying at times, like at places like Daytona, where it always rains in the afternoon, and it's going to rain in the afternoon. It's frustrating, but ultimately I think it's kind of what you have to do to keep your TV partners happy, because without your TV partners, you probably don't have a sport. So, I think it just kind of is what it is, you know.
Joey, I think that we're a little bit guilty of living in a NASCAR bubble over on this side of things and on the show to a certain degree. Obviously, there's two major TV networks on the NASCAR side of things. There's Fox, there's NBC. IndyCar has worked really, really hard, and Roger Penske has, to try to maintain some continuity when it comes to television and their partners with NBC. I think they've done a pretty good job of that, but I'm not too well versed on how influential television is and NBC is in terms of IndyCar with the sanctioning body when it comes to start times, when it comes to scheduling, racetracks, things like that. Can you do a little TV/IndyCar for dummies for us in terms of how influential television is to IndyCar, how influential IndyCar is to the television partner, and how those two kind of coexist at this current moment?
Heavy on the dummy too over here. Heavy on the dummy.
Heavy.
Dillon could probably speak more on the TV side. I'm just a writer that doesn't get home until Monday because I pull off the overnight drives back home after a race. But no, on the TV times and the scheduling, obviously they've hit on something because we're seeing the numbers go vertical, right? Like we're seeing it hit the green. Really starting to see some progress there on the viewership and on how much retention there is too. I think that's the biggest key is like the age group that you're hitting and the retention that you're getting and just how that's going to continue to trend upward. Doesn't hurt that Formula One has that show that everybody continues to rave about that brought fake water to Miami. But the cars now look very similar to an Indy car if you're just a generic person that is intrigued by the sport, but not a full-fledged fan yet. So, you know, you're kind of, in a sense, dumbed down from that perspective. I think that aids the process. But you know, I don't necessarily like the scheduling that's gone on in the early part of the season. I don't think having 3 races over 3 months does anybody any favors, especially when you go to the back half of that schedule. And like the month of July and August, it's like you're getting 5 out of 6 weeks back to back to back. Whereas we've raced 4 times since February 26th, 27th. One of those was a head-to-head with Sebring, and you could have seen some heavy hitters come over from Sebring that are currently in sports car come and race the one-off at Texas in an oval. So I think that, and vice versa too, right? A lot of these guys in IndyCar go over and play in the Sebring sandbox, and the IMSA sandbox. So from that end, under one television network also that manages that, I struggle to understand that part of it, of why put them head to head when, you know, you've got Peacock, you got the streaming service, and that's where maybe Dillon could chime in if he knows a little bit more insight to that. But that's where I struggle to understand why we're doing that early on, because I feel like you're still creating a negative impact and not realizing the full potential of what you could gain from that market. You know, y'all talk about the Dover situation, for instance. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that it was independently owned, right? And
Right.
Last year.
And literally, yeah.
And then you look at that other standpoint of how much do you really want to invest in a track when you don't necessarily know what kind of return on investment you're getting? So do we want to put in lights? Do we want to do this? Is this even a track that's going to be on the schedule in a couple of years? Because we're already taking a date away. So I think there's so much that goes into that thought process when you look at Dover individually. But and that's just my quick thought on that. But on the IndyCar side, things are vertical. I just don't understand the early part of the 2022 scheduling.
I think a lot of it with the scheduling stuff on IndyCar has just been trying to get races on NBC as opposed to races on USA. I think that was part of the Sebring, Texas situation, was that it gave them an opportunity maybe to get Texas on NBC. But that's a big deal to IndyCar, to Roger, and obviously to NBC, to try to help the ratings with IndyCar is getting them on network. You know, and I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I mean 80% or so of the races on, you know, the IndyCar races this year on NBC, which is huge. You know, and I think you're going to start to hopefully see some more of that, you know, on the NASCAR side with both networks, you know, which obviously is good for everybody. So I think that's a big part of it. I know that's NBC obviously would have every single race across all 3 series on NBC if they could, but it doesn't always work that way. But I know on the IndyCar side, that's been a big a big priority, and it was a big priority kind of with their new TV deal that they signed. Was to get more of them on network.
Davey, go ahead, Joey. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just one quick thing to chime on that. Do you ever worry on the TV side, and whether this is a you question or an NBC question, about a loss of momentum though, like having the race and then 2 weeks off and then a race and then 3 weeks off and then a race and then 2 weeks off? And
yeah, but I mean, I think IndyCar is different than NASCAR, because IndyCar, it's not, niche is the wrong word, but it's a little more niche maybe than NASCAR is. Whereas I think IndyCar is it's more appointment television. Like people know, people are not just tuning on the IndyCar race maybe casually. There's some people that are, but a lot of people just turn the NASCAR race on because it's just on, and in the background, and it's whatever. But it's like, I think when people watch IndyCar races, they sit down and they watch IndyCar races because it's a 3-hour TV window, including a post-race or a pre-race show, the race and a little bit of post-race in 3 hours, so you can sit down there and watch it from start to finish. So, I mean, I don't know, obviously, those details, because obviously people view things, differently, but I think that, as you said, the numbers have been up. And so people are kind of starting to pay attention, and they just know when the IndyCar races are. And so they are going to tune in, whether they're back-to-back weeks or, 2 or 3 weeks apart.
Davey, I was just going to ask you, how awesome is it, do you think, that some of these races will go from IndyCar into NASCAR? And I think the more linear we do that, like if I can get a whole day sitting at a house and it's like Memorial Day, right? It's like Memorial Day weekend where you get to watch Monaco, IndyCar, and then NASCAR. If we can get more of that, everybody wins. Like, we don't need to fight. To you guys' point, I think everyone says it. Like, we don't need to fight each other. Like, make it a whole day to where if you're sitting at home in different parts of the world, you get to watch all this great motorsports. Why do we only do it for Memorial Day?
And you'll notice that most of the IndyCar races start at noon Eastern, and they're done by 3. And then NASCAR comes on. That's not an accident. That's by design.
Right. And I think we talked about it on this show countless times, Mamba. A rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yeah.
If IndyCar is doing better, NASCAR will do better. If NASCAR is doing better, IndyCar will do better. Formula One fits into that mix to a certain extent as well. But when you talk about North American forms of premier motorsport, it's the NASCAR Cup Series and it's IndyCar. And I think everything else is probably a notch below that. And that's no knock to the other divisions. It's no knock to IMSA. It's no knock to the Xfinity Series. It's no knock to any other major racing series on the continent. But it's just reality. Welcome back to Off the Record. Davey and Mamba, the dynamic duo you know and love, we hope, hanging out with Joey Barnes and Dillon Welch. On the other side, we're talking about IndyCar and NASCAR, the synergy with the television networks. Got some great people on the show today to provide some awesome perspective on that. One racing series that is not necessarily featured prominently in North America, at least hasn't been recently, but internationally is looked at as the barometer. That is Formula One. Drive to Survive has been huge. Racing in Miami this weekend, racing in Las Vegas next year. I've had the race in Austin over Joey's right shoulder over there for the last handful of years as well.
Davey, I love how Joey, when he mentioned it earlier in the show, he's like, I'm not going to mention the name of the show, but there's that show over there.
Sorry,
people
I
like to
mentioned
watch.
it. Look, I'll admit, I love the show. I watched it. I was
like
a
the
Formula
show.
One fan before. It's gotten me a little bit more into it. I think more people watching motorsports is a good thing. We can maybe get into that a little bit later too. But there's a conundrum, and that's the fact that Darlington Throwback Weekend is starting at 3:30, and the Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix is also starting at the exact same damn time. Look, Mamba, I'm not expecting F1 and NASCAR to hop on the phone, be buddy, and say, we want to help you. And, if you help us, we'll help you. I understand that's not going to happen. But damn, man, like as a fan watching on TV, I'm glad that I have a remote and I'm glad that I have streaming services. But damn, why? Why does this happen?
Because people are trying to flex, and I love it because I think a lot of people think that F1 is going to dumpster Throwback Weekend for NASCAR. Obviously, I'm a NASCAR homer, but at the same time, like, I'm a realist. And when I look at this, I don't think that like F1's gonna blow NASCAR out of the water. I really don't, because NASCAR fans, this is one of their big weekends. Like, it's a fun weekend for NASCAR fans with all the throwback stuff, and it's Darlington and all that. And there's a lot of them that travel to this race. Like, it's a very like sought after race to go watch. I think those fans are still going to tune in. I don't think there's as many NASCAR F1 fans as there are F1 fans watching NASCAR, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think that a ton of our fan base pays overly amount of attention. I think people in the industry do, like we all do, because we like seeing what's going on. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal as far as for that competition. But F1 came over here and they picked their date, they picked their place, they picked their region, they picked their time. And it is very interesting that they decided to lay it all on this one of these marquee weekends for NASCAR. It's a power move one way or another.
I don't know. I mean, Joey, do you think that was necessarily purposeful on F1's part to go head to head against a NASCAR race that is at a premier track? Or do you think it was more so circumstantial and they're just putting it at a time that works for the European audience and the American audience?
I think F1 only pays attention to F1.
You said it, not me.
I mean, I think back to, I think it was 2016, if I remember right. I might have my year wrong there, but they go down to Austin the same weekend that NASCAR is at Texas. And that was really the first real weekend that you saw the attendance start dropping at Texas. The continued decline, kind of, if you were to try to find a pinpoint origin, you could probably put it at that date. And it was just massive, the amount of fans that you would see in Austin. That's before Drive to Survive, before it hit big. Maybe now that we have 2 races in America, maybe that gets a little watered down a little bit, but I doubt it, just given the current trajectory. But I can't envision too many people being able to afford $9,000 tickets to a race either. So, from that standpoint, I think that's F1 only focuses on F1. I mean, I think back to what Kyle Larson said with his trip to Abu Dhabi is that, here he is, NASCAR champion, and no one really acknowledges that. It's just a different space. And, we're kind of in our own part of the corner of the world, and we appreciate NASCAR and IndyCar, and a lot of us still love F1, but the general casual audience, they just kind of pick one side or the other. I'll be very interested to see what it'll do numbers wise. I think there is something to be said for the fact that F1 race is going to be over in a 2-hour window. And so a lot of those fans are going to kick on the NASCAR race to catch the last 150 laps, because a NASCAR race these days does go on for 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hours. We'll see. But yeah, F1 only pays attention to F1, I think.
Mr. Welch, what are your thoughts on the whole situation? I think Joey brings up a good point. The F1 races are shorter, they're more compact. I'm not going to say there's more action in that compact time, because I think that'd be a little bit stretching the truth there. But F1 race is probably going to be over by before or the end of stage 2 of the NASCAR race. Your thoughts on just the whole situation, F1 coming to the US and going head to head with NASCAR once again?
Yeah, I mean, I think Joey's exactly right. I think F1 does what they want to do and what's best for them. And they probably felt that time slot was going to be the best for them, because it allows them to kind of lead into prime time as well. But yeah, it's like, if you're at home, you could watch the entire F1 race if you wanted to, and turn on the NASCAR race and probably see all you need to see. Like it's,
you're not gonna lose.
It's 500 miles. Like, it's 500 miles. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna be able to see the finish, and a good chunk of the race. And that's unless they were gonna put the F1 race on at 1 and have it be done by 3 or 3:30. Like, it's better than it going up against the finish, in my opinion. Like, at least it's just going up against the start of the race, and not, not like a 5 p.m. start or something. But it's like you can flip back and forth. You can watch the entire F1 race and then still catch the end of the NASCAR race. So I don't know, again, unless they were going to put the F1 race on at 1. It's better than the NASCAR race being at 1 and the NASCAR race finishing while the F1 race is finishing. That would have been bad. So I think in some ways this is probably the best case scenario.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. I thought of two things while you guys were talking about this. Is one, we used to have a lot more night races, right? Which meant more Saturday night stuff. I kind of I wish that we had that because like this, I feel like this wouldn't be a problem. Kind of Joey made me think of it before. Is he's like, well, you guys don't have any, you don't run Saturdays anymore, and we really don't. Like I did the math, I kind of counted it up the other like yesterday. I think it was only like 4 or 5 maybe. And I think we lost a little bit without Saturdays, and I think the people that work gain a lot from a Saturday night race, right? You gain time home. Your turnaround time is a little better. You get a Sunday with your family. That, and I also don't think that we need all our races to be 500-mile races, which obviously they're not all that way. But crown jewel races should stay the same. But I think we could really shorten some of these and gain a lot.
I have long been a proponent of making the Daytona 500 500 miles and Talladega 500 miles and the Southern 500 500 miles, and that's it. Coke 600 should be a 600K. Everything else should be 350 miles or less.
I see nothing wrong with what you said. I've said the exact same thing for years.
I mean, it should be though. Like, I mean, seriously, Mamba. Like, I get it, but like, nobody wants to sit there and watch a 5-hour race on Sunday night. Nobody wants to sit in the stands and do that. Nobody wants to watch them.
Some people do, but it's not your future, and you're not sacrificing your traditional fan base if you're cutting off an hour of action.
Nobody is going to care that it's the Coke 600K. You don't even have to advertise it as that. You can still advertise it as the Coke 600. But yes, it saves you an hour or more from people sitting in the grandstands, people watching on TV who have just watched the Indy 500 all day or been at the Indy 500 all day. Like, to me, I think you keep the Daytona 500 500 miles, you keep the Southern 500 500 miles. And I guess you could argue to keep the 600 miles because it is the Coke 600. But to me, I think that has run its course personally.
Look, here's the main thing we need to remember. 500-mile races and the Coke 600, as you guys know, those were created back in the day because they wanted to test man and machine.
Right.
That mission was accomplished. It's 2022. Man and machine cannot be tested under those conditions the same way that they were being able to back then, because the drivers are too fit, the cars are too sustainable. It doesn't matter. It's just a longer race and it draws it out longer. I've talked to countless drivers who share the same opinion as what you said. You can keep the crown jewels as 500 miles. You keep Daytona. If you want to keep Charlotte, fine. Do a Talladega race, maybe even the Southern 500 as well. Everything else, shorten it. And I've said on this show, I've said everywhere, shorten the races, shorten the season, shorten the schedule, because oversaturation is not a good thing. And I think we're in a dangerous spot right now because I understand that the TV partners want more racing. They want programming. That's a given. But if you oversaturate people with your product, you may lose some of that fan base and that viewership. Part of the reason why I think the NFL is so successful, and I don't like drawing parallels from racing to stick and ball, but I think this one holds some water. I think part of the reason why they're so successful is because they have 16 games. That's it. 17 games now. They have 17 games over 18 weeks of the season, plus the playoffs. They have the longest offseason in professional sports. And somehow, some way, it's always dominated by the NFL. If there's a free agency move, that's the first story on A1 in the newspaper and on SportsCenter. The draft, all the conversation and the hype surrounding that. I'm not saying that I dislike NASCAR being the longest season in professional sports, because as a fan, as a viewer, I enjoy that. But I'm just saying that IndyCar may be onto something in terms of less is more. And I think that, Joey, your point is great about having more compact races. Like, you shouldn't be having 4 races over the span of 3 months, or whatever the situation is to start off the year, like you mentioned. But I do think that NASCAR is maybe a little bit oversaturated in terms of the amount of races, the quantity of events. And IndyCar, I know that they're working towards it. I think they could probably use a little bit more as we're seeing an uptick in viewership.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it like, for me in IndyCar racing, the sweet spot's 20. I think try to find a way to get 5 ovals total, run the rest on road and street courses. And that to me, the sweet spot is 20. I look at the NASCAR side of things. I think the sweet spot's like 32 or 30, honestly. Talking about oversaturation. I mean, this is overkill. This is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but like, I'm tired of giving out participation ribbons with the championship playoff format. Like, why are we've downsized the field? Why are we continuing with 16? Why are we? And I get it, because there's some charter system stuff and all this other stuff involved in the RTA. But, I look at it from a standpoint of it. I feel like that number should be 8 if you're going to continue forward with this, maybe 10, you could convince me of. But the other end of that too is, and I'll go a step further, is you talk about Saturday night races. Why don't we try to fill the Thursday night slot that NFL occupies during the season? What if during the other part of the year when NFL's not? What if you find a way to get NASCAR in on a Thursday night, or any racing series for that matter, occupy that 3-4 hour window on a Thursday night? I think it could be fun, entertaining, because the ratings for that could be a lot of fun just because it's new and it's different.
I'm down for it, but I would be hesitant that it would work because, and different circumstances, but they tried the midweek stuff during COVID, didn't work that well. Double headers didn't work that well, viewership wise. And, I loved it. I think a lot of people here loved it. But what ends up making something stay in this day and age is what the TV ratings are. That's all that matters.
Before we go to break, I gotta go toe to toe with both. On my screen, you guys are on my left. So if you guys are over there, whatever. First off, Davey, you talk about how small the season is. They just started another new league of football. Not to mention college. So
and
like,
guess what?
NFL,
it's not going to work because the NFL's king.
No, but the NFL basically like helped produce that. So like, you're saying like you got to look at football as a whole for the whole season, not football just NFL. It's like college football, USFL league and NFL. Those are all like lineage things. So like that season now of football is long. NFL, yeah, maybe it's a little shorter. But football, there's a reason why they want more. There's a reason why they want more season games, right? More money. The players were like, our bodies, not so much. Then my man Joey over here coming out my playoff format. God dang it. Listen. You want to know why that we should leave it the way it is? Because people actually give a shit. Like they give a shit. They care. And the teams, if you break it down to 8, right, then you're kicking out. I know that, it probably in the grand scheme doesn't matter, but you're kicking out a lot of guys that aren't going to get any more TV time, right? That like you win one race and you go into the playoffs, that helps you out for 3 races for sure, where you're getting guaranteed more time as a team standpoint. And on top of that, if you get lucky and you can, like an underdog makes it through, like a Ryan Newman, who no one ever thought would be in the Final Four against Havoc and then almost stole the whole championship. And my heart would have been ripped out because I got a ring because of Havoc. Thank you very much. You never get that story. If you just leave it as the top of the top, then it's always going to be that. So to both of you guys, frou on you.
I think, and even to just kind of play devil's advocate, like, yeah, there's 16 cars that make it. There's 20 that aren't in the playoffs, but like, I love the format. I would almost be in favor of maybe cutting the number down too, just to, in a situation like this year, where for the first time we could potentially have 16 different winners. But if it was like 14 guys made the playoffs or 12 guys made the playoffs, but if 12 guys made the playoffs and 14 guys had wins, you still have like a points battle for like that 12th, 13th, 14th range.
Yes.
You know what I mean? As opposed to it just being everybody who wins and then the next 4 guys that, ride around in, 12th to 15th every week, basically. Yep. So I love the format and the intensity that it creates and the opportunity for, those guys to get that exposure. But I am almost kind of on team cut the number just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit to kind of add a little spice to that end of the year regular season run and that cutoff bubble. I think it would be something, something else to kind of, talk about and get people excited about.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly why I was saying cut it down, because too often you run into people who haven't won that points their way in, and it's like, what was the point of this championship to begin with? We didn't want the Ryan Newman situation to play out, but you're going to continue to allow it to play out. And I understand playoff points and this and that, and you can still find a way to the end of the rainbow there. But at the end of the day, if we're going to put emphasis on winning, let's put emphasis on winning.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, look. I digress. I hear your counters. I don't fully disagree, but we will all agree.
The full swig of bang says it all.
Yeah. He's like, Joey's like, got him, got that guy. I'm gonna take us to break because I'm fired up. I need to refill my glass. We'll be right back with more Off the Record.
Welcome back to Off the Record. Davey and Mamba hanging out with Joey and Dillon. And would you look at the calendar? It's the month of May. You know, some people say Christmas time is the most wonderful time of the year. I will have to say that the month of May, to me, Joey, and I know to you and Dillon as well, that may be the most wonderful time of the year, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It's always good when we get closer to Indy, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I love it. Dillon, you all jacked up? You ready to rock?
Yeah, I can't wait. You know, growing up in Indy, this was, you know, the month of May is what everybody who has lived in Indy or was born in Indy lives for. You know, it's there's just something about it, like just knowing that, you know, while you, like when I was younger, like being at school and knowing there was cars on track practicing and knowing that like, okay, this weekend's, you know, bump day or just it builds up all month and you know, obviously then when you get to race day, there's nothing else like that in the world. So I'm super excited to, you know, to get to go back here in a couple of weeks and be around for most of the month. So I'm giddy that it's finally here.
Mamba, we're NASCAR guys through and through. Can you admit, because I have had this take for a while, can you admit that the Indy 500 is the biggest race in the world, please?
Yeah, I would say probably. I mean, honestly, right? Like, no, I would say so. Be like, I was thinking of like Monaco, right? And like obviously our 500 is fantastic, but like our 500 is so specific. Like it's a super speedway race, so it's like a very, you know, a unique event by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like Indy is too, but I don't know. Like Monaco, there's not a whole lot of passing, right? When you think about that place, like if you get out front, you get out front. Daytona, it's a super speedway. We love it because it's all the passing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this place called Indianapolis. You know, the Brickyard is right down the middle. It's like the purest of both.
It just
it's
different.
It just hits different. It's you walk in that place and it's like, oh, it's like the heavens are opening for motorsports.
Yes.
And you look at the brick and it's all gritty and nasty, and you're like, I just want to tongue that thing and be in victory lane there.
Tongue that thing.
Like, just tongue that thing. Which shout out to Ryan Newman. I got a Brickyard ring, so that was cool. But yeah, no, I mean, that place is just different. It's literally built different. It's just different.
Welcome back to Off the Record. Mamba's showing out with that awesome shirt. I really like that shirt.
I love the shirt. It reminds me of the NASCAR racing video game in '96.
Speaking of the video games, if you see RFK Racing's Twitter, Ace Moneymaker, you may hear a familiar voice posing.
That was awesome.
Ace this week. Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, they do a great job. Elijah does all their social media stuff. It's sweet. And when he kind of like brought that to me, I was like, I don't know if I can be the correct voice of Ace, but they're killing it.
I'm sorry. What did you do?
I'm the voice of Ace Moneymaker for RFK Racing this week.
Sheesh. All right, superstar.
Check it out.
All right,
now. We got Throwback Weekend on the docket. We'll go quick around the horn. Your favorite throwbacks. It could be the Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series this week. I'll start us off. I love Josh Berry's orange Looney Tunes car.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go next. I love Ross Chastain's black Coca-Cola #1 car. I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Hattori Racing. They're doing a throwback to Darrell Waltrip and Mike Skinner's.
The fire.
Yeah, they got the flames. Which, speaking of flames, William Byron's one is off color and it makes me upset.
Dillon, what do you think? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Trackhouse cars, just and also because they used the old DEI font on both cars. But I think the petty cars that they released today both look really good. Especially the 43. I think those are clean and they look really nice.
Joey, since we don't have an IndyCar throwback weekend yet, what's your favorite NASCAR throwback?
He probably likes Chase Briscoe's because it's an IndyCar.
That is a good one.
Yeah. But I actually kind of side with the Trackhouse ones personally. I was a DEI fan growing up back in like 2001 to 2003. I was like all DEI, all about it. So that one kind of resonates a little bit.
I know this is completely off topic, but I'm thinking about Charles Leclerc, and I really want. I'm a big, like, obviously I work for Ferrari.
Had to get this in.
I had to get it in because it really wears me out, right? So he's at a Marlins game playing catch. I don't know if you guys saw the
He
video.
wasn't playing catch. He was trying.
He was playing drop. He has the glove, and whoever he's throwing it with puts it in the glove. It hits the glove and it falls out three times in a row.
Baseball before.
Don't care. I don't want to hear about athletes and who is and who isn't. You got to catch the ball, bro.
I bet if you go over to Europe and you play water polo or like croquet,
Bro,
you look like a dumbass too.
You put me in any sport and I'm a play. Swimming, I'll be slow, but I still can get it done.
I don't understand why he didn't go to like a soccer game. Like, why not hit up like an Inter Miami game or something?
Because you got to be American, Joey.
I guess.
Soccer is the world game. Baseball's America's pastime.
No,
I mean, Americans can't afford to go to the Miami GP, so I just think it kind of just fits right into the style.
You can afford to go to a Marlins game. Those tickets are like $3.
Yo, Joey throws the most.
Joey's coming to play today.
He just like sprinkles it in there, and you like think about it, you're like, wow, that was savage.
Oh,
I want to know who signed off on fake water and why that even got approved in the first place. Like that is the biggest joke and the biggest posh thing that I've ever seen.
I think it's because they were supposed to put actual water in it and that got denied. So
they didn't get approved. Yeah.
I think it was the opposite. It was like they were gonna go big.
Yeah. So I think F1 was trying to, and then I think the city or whatever, they didn't approve it. So instead you got fake water.
Yeah, you can't have weepers in that corner. That's for sure. So
we're over here in NASCAR world where our fans get upset about a $2 million clash race, and then damn F1 is dropping over 100 milli or something dumb like that. Okay, whatever.
Different worlds.
How is that race not a night race too? By the way, like you go to Miami with the glitz, the glamour, South Beach, and all that. How are you not running like right by Hard Rock Stadium with the lights on?
They ain't got no lights.
Right? Like Bob doesn't know what to do.
That place got lights.
Yeah, Bob, does the Miami GP have lights?
That's where we gotta end it. We gotta end it right there. We gotta send this to Bob.
What a great place to end it. Joey bringing the heat, Dillon bringing the lukewarm heat, but also knowledge, and Mamba always bringing it as well. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Off the Record. Enjoy the racing this weekend. Get that remote workout with that recall button or picture-in-picture. We will catch you on the flip side.
Floppy.